Hello folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield, and we'll take a look at them after round one. So this deck list is kind of near and dear to my heart. This one was submitted by Swaggery on Discord, and it is a Contamination deck. So Contamination is a deck that I actually worked on with Finn, the creator of Death and Taxes, for a little while, until we both ultimately decided the deck wasn't quite there yet, just in terms of the pieces. So I'm really excited to try and revisit this one. Contamination is sort of a pseudo Blood Moon effect, except it makes it so that if a land is tapped for mana, it produces black instead of whatever it normally would make. Now, that means there is no relief for basic lands, okay? So, like, it is black mana for everything, which in Legacy is very frequently going to mean that players cannot cast spells at all, unless, you know, they're a good, honest, hardworking mono-black deck like this one. So, this card does come with a downside. You have to sacrifice this at the beginning of your upkeep unless you sacrifice a creature. So we are going to try to use cards like Bitterblossom, or the much less common Dreadhorde Invasion, which allows you to make a zombie token each upkeep. That's not entirely an accurate description, but for our purposes with Contamination, that's what it's going to be doing. Now, there's another way to go and get a constant supply of tokens, and that's Retrofitter Foundry, which is searchable via Urza Saga. Okay? Old versions of this that I messed around with used to try to use recurring creatures from the graveyard, like Bloodghast, or maybe a Gravecrawler, a Nether Spirit, something like that. But the deck always just felt a little bit clunky, and we're going to see if either Urza Saga allowing us to tutor for a token producer, or having Bitterblossoms number 5 and 6 is enough to kind of set us over the edge here into the realm of playability. This is a deck that has, I don't know that it goes so far to like say it's starting to make some waves, but Contamination went from 0 play to a little bit of play, I believe, when Swaggery donated to see it on Brian's channel, Bosch and Roll. So one of the things Swaggery told me is that, like, the deck is good against the things it's good against, and real bad against the things that it's bad against. And Artifact Spew decks were one of the things that made the list of just like, hey, I can't deal with this. Hence the full playset of Null Rods in the sideboard. Beyond that, we have kind of the traditional playset of Leyline of the Voids. It's very common in these mono black decks. And then a little bit of removal. Debt to the Kami is kind of a weird looking card. Like, this card has really cool art, but doesn't exactly scream Legacy playability. The idea here is that this can get rid of Urza's Saga, which was one of the other problems that this deck apparently had. It was bad against Urza Saga and bad against Artifact Vomit decks, you know, the 8-cast style decks. Otherwise, we're just rounding out with some things to help us against the tribal decks and just kind of one more card to play versus the combo decks. Yeah, so generally speaking, I've been pretty happy playing these sorts of mono black decks in Legacy. I've done pretty well with them, usually 3-2 or better, very frequently 4-1. A lot of times the ones that I've been playing on the channel have been a little more focused on either a Dark Depths combo or a Leyline of the Void combo. So let's see if Contamination actually has what it takes to put up the W in Legacy. I'm excited to give it a try. I haven't played this strategy in a very long time. Anyway, if you're new here and you like what you see today, please consider subscribing. If you're a regular, please throw me a like before this video begins. That's the easiest way to support my content for free. If you end up wanting to mess around with this or get one of your own decks on the channel, that information is always available in the video description. Let's battle. Okay, unfortunately, with a single colorless mana source here, this hand is an auto mulligan, as is this one. Oh my god. All right, just check. There are lands in this deck, right? There are 21 lands in this deck. Okay. We're going to 4. Wow. That is a very bad 4-card hand. 100% of Contamination goes back. I don't think I can keep either Contamination here. How good is a colorless land? Second Mutavault basically lets me get to Contamination and doesn't do a ton else. Let's send that back, and now it's one of Contamination or Fatal Push. If my draws were exactly like Bitterblossom into land, that would be cool. I don't know if I am playing against a creature deck. I think I'll get rid of this. But I expect that I have lost this game greater than 90% of the time. Yeah, if this represents a control deck of some kind, we're down. Oh no, it represents Delver. Okay, the good news is we'll die pretty quickly. The bad news is I bottomed Fatal Push. We'll be leading on Swamp here, hoping to draw another Swamp to him to Turok, and if we don't, we probably play Urza Saga. But I'm just very dead here. So this deck has, 21 lands plus 4 Dark Rituals for 25 mana sources. Not bad. Like, that's probably pretty reasonable. Alright. Only 2 card types in graveyard, so I'm taking 1 here. That's not bad, but, like, damage is done. Can I even play that? What's my removal situation like in game 1? 4 Sudden Edict, 4 Liliana. Okay. So, I don't think I'm into the disappearing land here. Don't know that, like, I want the Urza Saga to get wastelanded if my opponent has one, because I haven't given them a chance to wasteland something yet. So I'm going to play this Bob. Bob probably dies. Yeah, okay. Bob probably dies to a Lightning Bolt. Yep, alright, let's F6 here. Now, as of right now, this is still only 2 card types in graveyard. Still only 2 card types in graveyard. I'm only taking 2, but, like, this is just so many looks at other card types. Okay, they just drew something, or they just found something with the Dragon Rage Channeler trigger that they want to keep. So I imagine that's like a force of will to back these up, or something like that. Because, like, if it's not an incredibly good card, it just goes back there. I am comfortable showing this Bitterblossom. I think I'm fine with that. Because, like, I still just look like mono black stuff. I don't think I'm giving it away that I'm necessarily running Contamination, which is kind of the big piece of hidden information. Okay. I think at this point I'm, oh, we're also about to hit a Murktide Regent. Yeah, okay. I'm comfortable conceding here. I'm not beating this ever at this point. Let's sideboard. Okay. So, removal sounds fantastic. The ley lines are definitely coming in. Leyline and Debts to the Kami are the absolutely's, and these are the playables, and I have to decide what I don't want. Don't feel fantastic about Thoughtseize. And all of this stuff is a lot of life loss. Without some reps, it's hard for me to know, like, how many things I have to keep in order to play reasonable Magic. Like, the whole Contamination play does legitimately lock my opponent out of the game. Is it better for me to just play a control game and do something like 10 out or 10 in? That's kind of what makes sense to me. I could keep Dreadhorde Invasion, because, like, technically, like, this produces lifelink, but Bitterblossom producing a chump blocker from Murktide Regent every turn sounds better to me. Yeah. Alright. We're not contaminating this round, I don't think. Alright, let's call this good. I wonder if by the end of this league I'm going to decide that the Mutavaults here are too greedy in the mana base. This is a reasonable hand with a lot of mana that I'm not super excited about. One of the primary reasons being that, like, if I lead on Dark Confidant and it's not killed, I'm probably going to end up Toxic Deluging it in a lot of worlds. That said, like, it's still just got 5 lands, which is probably one of the most important things in the matchup, is for me to just consistently hit land drops. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one. I'm not exactly sure which land I will offer up to the Wasteland Gods on turn 2 yet. We'll get to make that decision later, though. Oh, I will offer none of them to the Wasteland Gods, then. I think I'm just into offering up Bob. I don't think I get to take no play here and play around days. Well, like, I could do that, but, like, with Urza Saga being a mana sink in my hand, I'm kind of incentivized to, like, use my mana on turns, is probably a better way to put that. Alright, they found something they liked, which probably means another counterspell. And I'll have to decide whether or not I want to attempt to Toxic Deluge away Dragon Rage Channeler. Yeah, this could very easily put a card into the graveyard that they just got rid of and flip it. Doesn't look like it's happening immediately. Alright, I'm only taking 1. I almost certainly take 3 next turn. My opponent can make a decent-sized Dragon Rage Channeler already. I can play Dark Ritual to play around days. I think I'd rather hold this for later, though, in case I need to make an Urza Saga token while also taking some other play. Alright, let's attempt a very awkward 1-for-1 here, I think. I only need to pay 1 life. My opponent's not going to put... Like, if my opponent puts an instant in graveyard, that doesn't actually change anything. There is the days, unfortunately. But it's not like that, unfortunately. Because if my opponent picks up that land to daze me, they can't actually Dragon Rage... Or sorry, they can't actually Murktide Regent me next turn. These main phase Brainstorms are kind of limiting my opponent's options for responding on my turn. But they're trying to get this thing to deal 3 damage. I'm guaranteed at least 1 Urza Saga token now, which is quite nice. I need that. I'm hoping that this thing... You had that bobble, why do you... Or no, did they just brainstorm? They brainstormed, so they already knew the card. And they are keeping it on top. Potentially means another counter spell. Ooh. That's pretty good for me. It's probably an okay time to get the Mutavault into play. Let's go ahead and Dark Ritual. Cast a Plague Engineer. Ooh, nice. This is a human shaman, if memory serves. We'll get rid of that. And then, hopefully, I just get to get my Shadow Spear and be in pretty good shape moving forward. Alright. I still will have, like, the better objective board than my opponent, but Murktide Regent swings games pretty quickly. Alright. Now, I'm starting to pull ahead on board, and my opponent used some early counter spells, so here's to hoping some of this stuff resolves. Force Pitch Force. And I'll fire up the Mutavault and get 3 damage in, and then hopefully do some cool Castle Lockpoint shit, and my opponent doesn't have Murktide Regent, but, you know. Alright. There it is. I have plenty of removal spells I can top deck that just answer that. Hey. Target opponent exiles a creature they control. Target you. I'm playing this around days, so opponent would need to have a 3rd Force of Will. They did not. We fire up the old Mutavault and get another Lightning Bolt worth of damage in. Now, my opponent can just have another Murktide Regent. Like, there's still plenty of instants and sorceries in the graveyard. Counterbalance. I don't particularly care about that right now. Like, I have the power on board. And it's pretty unlikely that my opponent is going to flip a 3-drop. I'm going to go ahead and do this pre-combat here. There's Brazen Borrower that my opponent can hit. Probably about it. They didn't even choose to reveal. I'm human again. Fire up ye old Mutavault. Bash in for 3. So even though we're not doing the contamination thing here, we're doing a pretty good job of pushing damage. Yeah, Expressive Iteration is fine. Alright, they hit a land drop with it. And let's see where this goes. It can be like a Dragon Rage Channeler. Oh, it's just a Ponder. That's fantastic for me. Means I get another 5 points of damage in. Alright, so they liked whatever happened there. Alright. Go Gadget Mutavault. And bash in for 5. Drops opponent to 3. This requires 3 in tap. Yeah. So I'll be passing the turn. And I think, ooh, I think getting in with this damage has been more important than drawing cards, just in case anyone asks about that later. All right, here is another Murktide Regent. If my opponent doesn't have a Lightning Bolt, like, I can just keep attacking in with Plague Engineer and be perfectly happy with the situation. A little less happy now, because I can't make the attack this turn. Sudden Edict. I could attack with Plague Engineer. My opponent trades with Dragon Rage Channeler, and then I Sudden Edict away the Murktide. That's pretty good. There is a small chance that there is a 2-drop on top of my opponent's library, which makes this more awkward. And I think I just leave the construct back. Alright. Get in there, Plague Engineer. Alright. We trade these. And then I'm gonna attempt the Sudden Edict. I think I'm supposed to attempt this now before they have access to Brainstorm. Alright. They're at 3. I technically have another removal spell, but it's a pretty awkward one at that. Alright, there is an Expressive Iteration. I'm very glad that wasn't on top of my opponent's library. Oh shit, Wasteland for my Castle Locthwain is very good here. Oh, it's for my Urborg? That seems wrong. That seems very wrong to me. This draws cards. Okay. Do I want to trade Construct for Delver? I feel like the answer is no, because I just find a removal spell, resolve it, and then my opponent potentially dies to this 1/1. Yeah. I think I'll just go ahead and draw my card here. Kind of get some more information and see if I'm incentivized to attack for any reason. That kind of makes me want to attack. One has used 2 of their Expressive Iterations already. I guess Daze can also be on top. I don't know. I guess I open up my Toxic Deluge as an actual card once once like this is gone. But like, it's easier to resolve something like a Sudden Edict than it is a Bitterblossom, you know? How many Brainstorms has my opponent used? I've used 3 Brainstorms, so they actually are pretty unlikely to do a lot of stuff. Oh my god, that's so good. I kind of feel like the card that's in their hand is Force of Negation, but, you know, I'm not going to not cast this, right? Team Vents on top. Alright, Bitterblossom has resolved. That's very difficult for my opponent to get rid of. Like, they've got Brazen Borrower that could do it. Mystic Sanctuary for Expressive Iteration. Absolutely. Opponent's at 2. I am very much threatening to go wide of what they are doing. Okay, there is a Brazen Borrower. Oh, they put that into exile, though. That seems wrong. That means that they just have to... Well, I don't know what the card they put in their hand is. Maybe it's not wrong. The Dark Confidant is very good. I think the Bitterblossom is better. Let's go ahead and cast this. Alright, there is their final Brainstorm. If they have a 2. Oh, they do not have a 2. Alright. So I am threatening to kill them. It's Urza Saga token into Urza Saga token into Shadow Spear equip. And Brazen Borrower can only block creatures with flying. Okay, it looks like they are going to have a reasonable sized blocker and be able to live for another turn or 2. Alright, yeah. Casual 2 mana 7/7. Let's make my token. And let's make some more tokens. So, not bad. Alright, there's another one. I still think I'm just going for the Shadow Spear. Now, where do I want to equip this, or do I just want to cast Bob? Because this fairy gets blocked next turn and trades with Brazen Borrower, or gets blocked by Murktide. Either one of these will be lethal, even if one of them gets killed. I can do a trample over that Brazen Borrower with this. I guess I can use my mana to equip next turn just fine. Let's try to get another body on board. I maybe should have cast the Dark Ritual. first to play around Days. But if I did that, it would have gotten countered by the Delver that's on top, so probably not, actually. There's more 1-drops than 2-drops in that deck by a pretty significant margin. Okay, that was good enough to get the concession there. I don't think anything is going to change about my sideboarding here. Like, Debt to the Kami is a little bit expensive as a removal spell on the draw, but I don't really know that I want, like, Contamination Thoughtseize or Opposition Agent over it. Like, at the end of the day, like, this is still something that kills Murktide Regent, which is usually the most critical card in the matchup. This does not have enough mana to be functional, despite having very, very, very good cards in it. I think I'd rather just try to mulligan and keep a safer hand. This qualifies. If I play Dark Ritual on turn 1, would I Hymn to Turok or Lily? I'd probably Hymn to Turok. I play around Days. And I could play Retrofitter Foundry, but I'm not really sure that I want to throw away something like a removal spell here, so I think I will just throw away this and potentially just waste a mana. It's also possible that I just attempt to Lily on turn 1, ignoring Days. Kind of see what my opponent does and how scared I am of it. And that's the scary start. Yeah, that is gonna get big quickly. We'll be at 3 types already. And if they find like a Ponder or an EI, they flip next turn. Alright, let's... Ooh. Given that I can play Sudden Edict next turn and the following turn without that being countered, I think I'm into a Dark Ritual-based line this turn. I'm gonna go for Glory here. Force of Negation. I got a Murktide Regent out of it, though. I am happy enough with that outcome. I may be able to just Hymn to Turok next turn if my opponent doesn't put another creature on board. Like, with double uncounterable Sudden Edicts in hand, I don't care too much about taking a little bit of short-term damage. If my opponent plays another creature here, though, it gets a little weirder. Oh shit, it's Murktide Regent. Just got rid of one of those. Alright. Unfortunately, I can't really just live with taking Murktide Regent hits, so I think I have to play Sudden Edict into Sudden Edict and hope my opponent doesn't play another creature this turn to protect Murktide from a future Edict. Because that's the worst case scenario for me by a lot. Mutavault. Cool. So let's play that. Play out a Pithing Needle, preemptively put that on Wasteland. And then I'll Sudden Edict away this Murktide. We're in pretty good shape if I can Hymn potentially like some counterspell-like things out of my opponent's hand. Alright, cool. We could trade 1 for 1 with another Force of Negation here. I got Mystic Sanctuary and Wasteland. My opponent is Hellbent, which means this Mutavault attack is safe. Okay. Sorry, my keyboard and mouse just kind of stopped for half a second there. Wasn't really sure what was up with that. Alright, so this is the point where, like, if my opponent top decks an EI or something like that, it becomes very good. I probably play this pre-combat because of Daze. It gives my opponent potentially a better Lightning Bolt target. But, like, they were going to have a pretty good Lightning Bolt target anyway, right? Alright. 2 potential damage. Is it happening? Opponent's at 14. They're just going to play out a Brazen Borrower as an attacker and attempt to race. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, it's not bad, but I don't know that it's good either. There's a great example of why it might not be good. If Daze doesn't beat me here, I can always kill this. Here's Plague Engineer. Looking at a Fairy Rogue. Let's name Rogue. Goodbye. Bash in for 3. Opponent's down to 11, and I have a 2-turn clock here. A decent amount of which is not just, like, brick-walled by a Murktide Regent hitting play. Now, these mono-black decks end up being slightly better than expected versus the, like, top dog of the format. Alright. I mean, we're just coming in swinging here. Assuming nothing goes wrong, this is a 3-turn clock. Totally fine. Trying to think if I have any reason to play out this land right now. Only if I hit, like, Castle Locthwain. I guess that's enough reason. Yeah, that seems to be enough reason. Like, I don't want to take extra points of life if I can avoid it. Yeah, so this is the scary shit right here. Like, this could represent, like, Lightning Bolt. Well, I guess not Lightning Bolt plus Wasteland. That's a bad example. Okay. So, is this a Murktide? No, it's going to 3 mana. What is 3 mana sorcery speed? Maddening Hex? Oh, no. Okay, it is a Murktide Regent. A small one, though. And a Delver. I mean, that's a good turn. It's a little scary for me. This can't attack this turn. Plague Engineer can. Opponent goes to 3. I think I do play out the Bob, but I have Leyline of the Void in my deck. So if this Delver flips, that's 7. And if I hit Leyline, I die to my own Bob. But I don't think this game is anywhere near guaranteed enough that I can not go for it. Okay, cool. They're not in a position to risk it currently. All right, Urborg is whatever. Urza Saga is very good. What happens if I attack in with Mutavault? What happens if I attack in with everything? I think I'm good with attacking in with everything. I probably just lose 1 creature. And Pithing Needle means Urza Saga kind of picks up the slack. I probably, like, lose Bob, a Murktide. My opponent has to chump block. Yeah, I think I'm into this. It becomes kind of bad if my opponent has, like, a Lightning Bolt. I don't think I want to give my opponent time to, like, flip that Delver for where they trade more evenly. Okay, that's fine. Alright, opponent goes to 1. Then I get to play Urza Saga. Also, like, that was the obvious block. I did not say that line, but, like, that is... Oh, wow. So that means opponent has some creature that can block Plague Engineer so that they do not die. It is Dragon Rage Channeler. Bitterblossom's kind of whatever. Really hope I don't die to Lightning Bolt. Alright. I will crash in with this Plague Engineer. My opponent's block is obligatory. And then if my opponent's last card is... like, well, it can't be their last card in hand. Well, I guess it could. Do I play this Bitterblossom? If I play this Bitterblossom, I can die to Price of Progress. But if I play this Bitterblossom, and my opponent has some sort of, like, Brazen Borrower-esque card that can just, like, stop the Plague Engineer from connecting, or just, like, another creature, I'm better at blocking Murktide Regent, so I'm probably supposed to play this. Like, there's worlds where I lose to it. And if I'm already dead to Price of Progress, I should just make my next land drop as well. No, actually, I should not play Urborg, because it can turn into a colorless mana for my opponent. Yes. Okay. Alright, that's horrifying. Alright, that was a shuffle. 3 more looks. It won't get to, like, fetch away. Oh shit, it attacked. Alright, am I dead to a Lightning Bolt? God damn it. That's so disappointing. Alright. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is a deck building website, and I've got my Zonksha EDH deck list pulled up here. In addition to just keeping track of, say, what cards you do and don't own, there's a lot more functionality here. You can see the chances of playing various cards on curve. You can take a look at your mana curve, the number of symbols in your deck, or you could even look at sample opening hands and even playtest with the deck itself. Alright, once again, we're forced to mulligan just due to not having enough mana. We're probably going to want to adjust the mana base after this league. Yeah, so here we're seeing, like, a fantastic hand that I can't really cast my cards in. Like, I can't cast this Hymn to Turok on turn 2, or this Hymn to Turok on turn 2. Like, regardless, it's still probably a keep. I have to throw back my Contamination here, though. Like, I don't have enough mana, and one of my lands is going to disappear over time, which is a bad combination here. All right, we are looking at Cloud Post as the matchup. Tavern? Elf? Oh, okay, sure. That's fine. Sorry, I got momentarily confused. Okay, that's one of the best possible draws here. It's just going to be Swamp Go, and I probably Sudden Edict the Elf first. Uh-huh. Okay. Ooh. That's a good draw. That's a good draw. So let's Sudden Edict here. And then I will go ahead and Hymn to Turok my opponent. Double Pithing Needle. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, I kind of wanted to take my opponent's lands there. Alright. Another Swamp. This is the first kind of big decision of the game. There's a lot of worlds where I can wait one turn and try to Hymn to Turok the fattest things out of my opponent's hand. So I think I am just going to play Bob this turn. I don't think I want to get Urza's Saga going yet. Like, I don't think I'm ready to start dedicating all of my mana to this. Like, because I want to Hymn to Turok next turn. Okay, sure. Alright, just going for the immediate copy. That's fine. Mouthy Voidwalker. Kind of whatever. Okay, cool. So I can take all of the cards from my opponent's hand now. Unless they're literally all lands. I just Thoughtseize one, him the other two. Rule? Damn it. I mean, I'll take them. But this is not exactly how I wanted this turn to go. So my opponent has 2, 4, 5 mana towards activating Eye of Ugin. I'm going to kind of hope that they just brick off here. Or not. Or not is cool. Alright, they have picked up another Cloud Post. So Eye of Ugin activations are officially on the table. And I have a lot of really bad top decks from here. Okay. Life's bad. I hit for 2. And my opponent can just go 3, 6, 7, activate Eye of Ugin. We'll see whether or not they have any medium-size Eldrazi. Or if it's just all the big stuff. Alright. It's the big stuff. There's also a world where my opponent doesn't play around Pithing Needle for some reason, and I get sick value. Alright. I activate this once again. Oh my god, they let me Pithing Needle Eye of Ugin? What the fuck? Thought I was going to have to work so much harder. Like, I thought I was going to have to use a discard spell as well. Okay, cool. We take that. Nothing with void counters yet. Send them. Yeah. So, like, I had the discard spells to, like, back up whatever thing my opponent got with the Eye of Ugin. They absolutely needed to activate there. Under different circumstances, that could have lost them the game. So the bad news here is my sideboard kind of feels anemic for this matchup. Like, an opposition agent will be very good. But this is a matchup where I am actively looking to assemble Contamination. I can technically Null Rod to shut off some potential artifact mana as well as Expedition Map. I don't know how good that is. Retrofitter Foundry doesn't seem super necessary. That's going to be my first swap, and then, like, is this actually good enough? Like, Fatal Push isn't great, but it hits the Elvish Reclaimers early, as do Sudden Edicts. Thoughtseize isn't fantastic, it misses a lot of the times, but the stuff that it hits is very important. There's also worlds where I can do something like this and choose to play this over Fatal Push. But I don't know that I'm into that, because again, this hits the early creatures. I think I'm just going to submit this as is. Hand looks great. I've got a turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Bob in most worlds. With the flexibility to Fatal Push an Elvish Reclaimer on turn 1. Alright, they've picked up a Thespian Stage. That's fine. Okay, so looks like I am going to kill an elf on turn 1. Oh no, it's an Expedition Map. That's fine. So, back to the normal plan. Eh? Alright. Thought sees you. Glacial Chasm. Alright, Endurance or Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time is castable next turn. I'd probably just take the thing that's castable in their immediate future. They can't really cast an Endurance yet with only a single green mana. And if their Expedition map fetches a forest, that feels like a pretty big win to me. I would be totally happy with that. Urza Saga, not super happy with this land, given, like, what I'm working towards, but it's probably fine. I deal a ton of damage to myself. Alright, there's the map activation, which, as expected, grabs the Cloud Post. Alright, there's the Cloud Post played out. I get to decide whether or not I want to go for a Contamination immediately. I always attack in with Bob, and that's fine. I'm always playing Swamp. I can play Contamination this turn, sacrifice Bob next turn after drawing a card, and then play Bitterblossom, and then just stack the triggers so my Bitterblossom thing resolves first. This seems fine to me. Like, I'm not expecting my opponent to play removal spells for Bob. So, like, Force of... yeah. Yeah. So, like, Force of Vigor is still very much a thing that exists. Like, if my opponent is playing that, like, they have outs to this. Alright, Contamination 1 on bottom. Resolve the Bob one. Swamp is fine. Sacrifice Bob. Play Swamp. Play Bitterblossom. And that's the lock. Yeah, you can absolutely copy your Swamp. Now, like, again, they can get rid of this stuff, and it can do stuff later. Hey, we did it. Alright, I have a reasonable mix of cards in my hand, but I have nothing to do with this Dark Ritual mana, and I can't really rely on the top of my deck with, like, no cantrips here to deliver. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and mulligan. This hand is hot! Yeah, it's really hard to tell what goes back. I think this is one of those times where I see if my opponent has a history of playing something and use that to help inform my decision. This is one of those things you can do online that you can't do on paper. Delver is the last thing that my opponent played. So that means I'm not throwing back Sudden Edict. I'm probably throwing back one of Hymn to Turok or Bob. I think I'm going to throw back the second Bob. Now, this doesn't 100% mean that my opponent is playing Delver. Like, they could play some other deck. And they are. They are playing lands. Oh, okay. Probably Urza Saga lands. I always play Swamp, and then it's harder from there. Hymning my opponent is really awkward if they have a Life from the Loam in hand. In the world where they don't, though, it can be pretty good. I think I'm going to go ahead and go for that. Alright. Wasteland and a crop rotation. Not the best hits in the world. I've got this Sudden Edict. If my opponent goes for a Merit Lodge, I've got that covered, but I'm pretty bad versus just like Urza Saga nonsense. Okay. There's a lot of worlds where I die. So is my opponent going to port me? They are going to port me. That's fine. Means that they don't have just like crop rotation just instantly kill me in this turn cycle, which I guess is nice. I'm more interested in getting a Bob on board here than I am thought seizing my opponent. Yeah, that's fine. Like, this gets a Dark Depths. Or at least I expect it to. There's worlds where, like, they say, like, fuck it, I'm not losing to an Edict, and they just get an Urza Saga, and it's super bad for me. Okay, they are going for the Dark Depths, which feels very beatable to me. I wonder if they messed up their turn, though. I wonder if they're supposed to sorcery speed search for that. No, I guess... no, that's worse against some things. Yeah, I take that back. I don't like that line. Because of Hymn to Turok specifically. Thinking about Opposition Agent. Alright. Here's a Bob. Find Fatal Push. It will port me. Still got the mana to make Merit Lodge. I'll pretend this matters. Do I want Urborg in play? Probably not, because this would start producing mana. So I will offer up Castle Locthwain. It'll land a huge portion of the time. But let's figure out what it is. Soul Guide Lantern. Okay. I'm going to sit in combat here. Like, I'm kind of thinking about whether or not I actually want to attack into this. Then I'm going to send it in. See how my opponent feels about this. They shouldn't make it now because of Dark Ritual Liliana of the Veil. Alright, cool. And then we'll see if they decide to go for it here. Based on their play patterns, it seems like the answer is yes. Alright, cool. They make the Merit Lodge. I kill the Merit Lodge. Now, game's not over, right? Like, they can rip a life from the loam and just very quickly pull both of these back into play. I think they're supposed to wasteland my land. Alright, I have another Edict, and they're going to know about this one. Fine throwing this into play. They are presumably going to tick up their blast zone. Yeah, that could have happened earlier. I think I'm fine losing 4 life to draw a card on this board. This is fine. Bash in for my 2. And I've already played my land, I believe. I have. My opponent will tick up their blast zone. Yep, there we go. Now, to talk about a fringe play, if I still had my Castle Locthwain in play, in response to Blast Zone being cracked, I probably would kill my own Dark Confidant with Fatal Push. But since I don't have that in play anymore, I don't really need to take that line. I can instead keep this as fodder for Liliana. Combination not great here. Do I want to Thoughtseize my opponent? Yes, I do. My own life total is starting to become a little bit concerning. I haven't seen any sort of Punishing Fire type thing yet. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah, I've got basically all duds in hand right now. My opponent knows about Sudden Edict. Okay, so there are Punishing Fires in the deck, so there are worlds where I can take. That's annoying. Yeah, that's fine. This will more or less do it. This is awkward for me, though. So my active players, that go on sec the non-active players. So I'm going to have to pay for these. No, I'm not going to have to pay for these tokens. Am I fine playing this out now? Or does this kill me too much of the time? Because, like, I can lock my opponent out in terms of mana if I play both of these. But I will be reliant on the top of my deck to find things that kill my opponent. And I am at 9. I don't know that I'm supposed to play the Contamination here. I think I'm just going to play the Bitterblossom as a threat, but I'm not 100% sure about this. Just feels like if I play both Bitterblossom and Contamination, and I'm facing down double Rishadan locking down my mana, things get really awkward for me. Yeah. Yeah, I think I just have to keep this as a threat. Like, it's very awkward for me, especially if my opponent draws exactly life from the loam. But if I sacrifice this creature every turn to keep my opponent locked out of mana, I don't have a lot of time to deal 15 damage. Especially since some of my threats like Dark Confidant also will deal me damage. Don't know how safe it is. Okay, there is a Grove. And now I don't need to pay for Tabernacle the first turn because these were not around at the beginning of the upkeep to see Tabernacle ability. And now we're going to play this whole Rishadan Port game. Yeah, that's fine. Urza Saga is really good. Does this beat my opponent hard enough that I can play Contamination now? Probably. I don't make a construct the first turn. I make a construct the second turn, and then I get Shadow Spear, equip it, and that will offset the life loss of Bitterblossom. That seems fine. Alright. We're in here. Alright, more land for my opponent. Alright, so this Contamination one. So this Fairy Rogue one goes on bottom. I guess I'll do it in this order. Make a token. I guess I sacrifice this creature. And can still attack this turn. I pay for it. I do intend on doing. And my opponent will port down the Urza Saga. That's fine. Okay, so it has this ability now. All these cards really do nothing here. I'll crash in for 1. And if my opponent ends up copying my Urza Saga, that's fine. I have multiple removal spells here to deal with tokens. Yes. So this just ticks up to 1 at first. Oh. That, though, is scary. Alright, so let's stack these. I'll do the same thing as last time where I just sacrifice summoning sick 1. Fine paying for this one. Opponent will attempt some Rashad and Port nonsense, at which point I will go ahead and just make my creature. Ooh, that's pretty good too. Oh, I can also just Pithing Needle Shadow Spear here. Sorry, I can Pithing Needle Urza Saga here, and then my opponent can't get tokens off their stuff. Will I win fast enough? It's going to be tight. I'll need something else. Essentially, I'll get 5 turns of attacking for 2, which is 10. I'll need to find 4 other damage somewhere. I think I do the Pithing Needle thing. Just a little awkward. It's not deterministic. All right. This turn, I think it is worth casting Liliana and just getting her ticking up. Because, like, these extra cards that are sitting in my hand don't really do a ton. All right. So goodbye him. Hello, 1 damage. Or sorry, it's... actually, I'm attacking in sets of 3. I forgot to count my artifact that I was about to get. Does that mean that I'm just good at this point now? Yes, that means I'm just good at this point, assuming no further interaction or anything. Alright. Contamination, Bitterblossom. Alright, so make the thing. There's so many upkeep triggers. I'm very much in danger of timing out if this game drags on for a long time. Not in game 1, but in like a game 3 scenario. Alright, my opponent disconnected for a minute there. But they are back now. I'll pay for my creatures. They'll port me off a land. They will not port me up a land. Just pre-combat plus. Can't crop rotation. Your land's pretty black. Yeah. I'm going to get rid of the redundant contamination before the fatal push. Yep, it was crop rotation. I'll crash in for 5. Sorry, I'll crash in for 3. I am at 5. Alright. There goes an Urza Saga. They found a Shadow Spear. And then they've taken a Mox Diamond out of their deck. Alright. Play the whole trigger stack game again. Make a token. Stack a token. Pay for my dear friends here. There's an Urza Saga, which is Pithing Needled. That's fine. Plus Lily. Rid of Fatal Push. I will just play this anyway. Crash in for 3. Opponent goes to 7. I imagine this is kind of the end here. Name, Song, and Dance. Make a token. Stack a token. Pay for creatures. There's another Contamination. Lily. Plus my opponent here. There goes Punishing Fire. Crash in for 3. Putting my opponent to 4. Name, Song, and Dance. Make a creature. Stack a creature. Pay for these. Search for an artifact. Grab a Shadow Spear. I guess I will ultimate my opponent for funsies. Do something like that. Doesn't matter very much. Not gonna spend very much time thinking about it. Alright. Take a land drop. Whip a construct. Crash in for lethal. It is a slow death, but it is a death. Well, this is unexpected, but my opponent has just said, fuck it, nope, and just conceded the whole match. We take those. We're now 2-1. Okay, well, we're playing against a Yorion deck for round 4. I think this is about the 4th hand that I've mulliganed for just having only colorless mana. So again, I don't think I'm on board with the Mutavaults here. Because this would probably be a keepable hand on a basic swamp. Just Dark Ritual Thoughtseize Bob. And just, like, take whatever is going to get rid of the Bob out of the way. This hand is going to be a keep. This is potentially Death and Taxes. And if my opponent has Aether Vial, Contamination loses so much oomph. So I think that's going here. I'd kind of like to draw, like, a Thoughtseize, so that I have a efficient way to use all of my mana. Oh, shit, I'm on the play. Yes, we're Bitterblossoming, then. That is just, like, the thing that spirals hardest over time. Let's go. I could have had a very fast, like, Bitterblossom Contamination, but, like, again, if this is, like, D&T, and my opponent leads on turn 1 Aether Vial, like, that's such a bad line to take. Would have worked out this time. A Dark Ritual? How into Urza Saga am I here? I can just Dark Ritual, play Dalthy Voidwalker, Urza Saga. The next turn I play Swamp. Yeah, I think I'm into that. This hand has put up a ton of pressure. Like, very, very happy with how this is looking. Like, this is a scary situation for my opponent, because, like, they are built for endgame inevitability. And I have just, like, thrown the gauntlet of pressure down. Okay, there's a Wasteland for Urza Saga. Like, that's good for my opponent and all, but, like, I still have increasing amounts of power in play. A lot of which has evasion. I guess a Stoneforge Mystic for, like, a Batter Skull here buys a lot of time. But, there's a Source of Plowshares in exile. Oh, no, there's not a Source of Plowshares. There's a Wasteland in exile with a Void counter. Is this play? I play it this turn. There's worlds where I just, like, sacrifice Dalthy Voidwalker to Wasteland my opponent. Not sure how I feel about that. So, this is almost certainly Cathar Commando, right? It's either Cathar Commando or a removal spell for Dalthy Voidwalker. If it's Cathar Commando, I just want to deal damage to my opponent. I'm about to lose this. Not Cathar Commando, and it's just Swords to Plowshares. It's, like, super good for me to Wasteland my opponent. But if it was Swords to Plowshares, my opponent should have just done it on their turn, right? So it's probably Cathar Commando. In which case, the damage is probably more relevant than most other things. Okay, it was cycling a Timeless Dragon, which goes to exile. I can convert my Dalthy Voidwalker into a 5/5 if I want. I am not sure that I want to do that. Alright, there's that decision being taken away from me. Thalia, while not having no text, is not a big deal here. Drawing mono swamps here, not great though. I still think I'm okay in a lot of worlds. Like, my opponent needs a source of life gain. Like, a flying blocker is probably not good enough. Yeah, like, Flicker Wisp can kill one of these and, like, eat another in combat, but I don't know that this is going to be enough to help them stabilize, especially if I draw, like, literally anything. Alright. More fairies. Sudden Edict. I don't think I need to play that yet. Let's just go ahead and crash in for the damage. My opponent to 6. I'll just play this land drop. I'm going to do this 100% of the time when Thalia attacks anyway. And I'm not expecting anything that my opponent would play pre-combat to really matter here. They would just do everything post-combat anyway. And now, like, I'm in the range where something like a Skyclave Apparition killing the Bitterblossom isn't actually fast enough, because I still just have my opponent on a 2-turn clock anyway. But yeah, this is fine for me. Dark Ritual isn't great. But hopefully this is just enough power in the air to kind of limp over the finish line here. So I get attack for 2, which is fine. My opponent needs a flyer or a removal spell. Oh, that one is scary, though. That is a lifelinker. That's quite bad for me. All right. I will bash in for my 2. Put my opponent to 1. I'll play a Bob. I am, in theory, representing 4 points of damage next turn. I don't know how realistic it is that, like, that will come to fruition. The Yorion next turn is a real problem. Don't know that my... Am I supposed to block that with Bob? Maybe supposed to block this with Bob so that my opponent can't blink it. But I can, at the same time, I can also just use Bob to find a discard spell to take that Yorion out of hand. I have 8 pieces of discard. Or, no, I have 10 pieces of discard. If I don't block, and my opponent doesn't play another thing, Sudden Edict, or an equivalent removal spell also kills my opponent. I don't think I block, given that. Now, my opponent can still have another relevant card. I don't know for sure. God damn it. Okay. So I whiffed here. Opponent can blink both of these things on their turn, getting rid of Bob and this, leaving me with these tokens. Probably want to take this creature out of play so that in the future, if I get other permanents that matter, they can stick around with Skyclave. But this is not an ideal scenario for me. I had so many outs. How many was that? So it's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 outs and 2 draws for them. Alright, such is life. Oh, there's no way you attack without Solitude and trade it for the illusion token. Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. Now we will see which thing they do eat with a Solitude. It's possible they want to, they want to get a flyer instead of the larger token. Another Bitterblossom's okay. And this is the sort of reason why I wanted to force the Skyclave out. Alright, opponent. Damn it. That's bad. We'll see. My opponent is at 2. They do need to play somewhat conservatively. Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. So I can play this Bob out, and then my opponent just gets rid of it with a Yorion bounce. I think I hold and just try to have a big turn where my opponent can't answer too many things at the same time. No end of turn Yorion bounce. What the fuck is this? Oh god. Sure. That probably beats me. I don't know that you are supposed to attack with that card. I'm so happy to take that out of play. So incredibly happy for that exchange. Okay. I believe in the Bobs. Where is the Saga? I do not like that card even in Yorion D&T. I think it is very hard on the mana. Like, it's good in this spot, like where it's the end of the game and my opponent is top decking. But generally speaking, I don't think that it's all that great. Like, I think it's competing for resources with your other cards, which are largely better. Okay. So my opponent is going to Yorion a Skyclave and take out one of my Dark Confidants. Oh, no. Okay. Gonna let me potentially die to my own Bobs. That's fine. Like, I had to take risks here. I was not going to win without taking some risks because I needed, like, 3 removal spells or equivalent. Okay, so my opponent has great endgame inevitability. I don't know that Contamination is good against the Aether Vial deck again. I want Plague Engineer. I want Toxic Deluge and Opposition Agent. And Debt to the Kami and Null Rods are technically playable. If I am going to be bringing in like 5 cards, the Contaminations are probably the easiest cuts. But I want to be on my opponent's side of the matchup here. And I also think my opponent just has too many things like Skyclave and Flicker Wisps that can mess with my Contamination and potentially wiggle them out if they have an Aether Vial. Alright. Contaminations are out, and then I need to find one other cut. It's probably one of the Bitterblossoms or Dreadhorde Invasions. Do I want a creature that scales in size? It's okay, but like my opponent has like batter skulls and stuff. I think I'm gonna go down on that and keep the null rods in the sideboard. Like it's a fine card, but I have a decent removal density already. Do I believe in the deck? I think I believe in the deck hard enough to keep this hand. Ooh, especially after my opponent mulligans, this is gonna be hot. So kind of the issue with keeping a hand like this is my opponent has a threat hanging out in exile, but I'm hoping to him to Torok away a bunch of their lands. Ooh. Take the early spell. I think it's take the early spell, try to keep a bunch of this stuff trapped in their hand, but it's possible that's greedy. But see how this Oh. Oh my god. Oh. That him card is pretty good, says my opponent. It sure is. It sure is. What a top deck, too. Absolutely disgusting. Now, my opponent admittedly did top deck a land into a second land. Okay. Fair is fair. Alright, goodbye, Urza Saga. Like, I've still got a Mutavault. Like, that's fine. 3 lands in a row. Alright. Alright. I may get punished if my opponent top decks a 4th land in a row and then just gets to Skyclave my better. God damn it. This is insane. What a wild game. I think I'm supposed to hold the Mutavault back to trade with this if my opponent attacks rather than getting in with damage here. Alright. There's a Recruiter, presumably for like a Flicker Wisp or another Skyclave. Alright, there's a Cathar Commando to handle the Bitterblossom. Same overall effect. Yeah, that's fine. Kind of miss out on some Mutavault damage for taking the line that I did. Oh, that's cool. So let's go ahead and play this. And again, I think I'll just leave my Mutavault back defensively here. I have a decent amount. All caps. Dreadhorde Invasion 2? That's yet another top deck land. Absolutely wild. Alright, the Bitterblossom is going. Just fine. Kind of stalled things out here. Ooh, a Shadow Spear. So I play this. I'm not sure which of these I'm supposed to equip it to. I think I'm just going to equip it to the zombie token. And that makes it less likely that I have to animate the Mutavault and lose that in combat. Not even sure if I want to be attacking here. I feel like the answer is no. Like, I just want to kind of make sure this Jitte doesn't take over the game, which I think means holding back as many bodies as possible in case my opponent top decks a Source of Plowshares or something. Their own Shadow Spear, sure. Alright, there's an equip to the Recruiter, but no attack. Sure. So this creature gets larger. This Thoughtseize isn't doing anything here. This board state is very much favoring my opponent. But I don't think I can like turn the corner and try to go aggro versus double on board life gain equipment. This is a game where Null Rod out of the sideboard looks good, but I think the vast majority of the time that's not actually super true. Like, because Stonefort doesn't fetch Jitte in this matchup. Most of the time it probably fetches Kaldra. Okay, opponent is not going in as hard as I expected that they would with ooh, with their equipment stuff. Let's start here. Okay. That's pretty good. The next step is just almost certainly to cast this. There's some very niche worlds where I do this targeting myself instead. Okay, so there's a 2/2. I could attack with my 4/4. If I do, my opponent could trade their Recruiter for my 4/4. I think I'm okay with that. I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm okay with firing off the Mutavault as well. So many ways to play this turn. Like, I can fire off Mutavault, just crash in for 7. I can crash in with these two and then move my equipment over here. Leaving back 2 bodies is good against, like, a single Swords to Plowshares effect. I don't know. Maybe I need to just, like, try to turn the corner before, like, Yorion gets involved and things get gross. Alright. Send him. Okay. Opponent just not gonna mess around with combat here. That's fair. Ooh, that is Stoneforge, presumably for a Cauldra. Yep, that is Stoneforge for Cauldra. I think you're supposed to attack with this, trade with his illusion token, and then kill this so that I don't have a flyer around to lifelink with later. I'm happy enough taking that recruiter off the table so that my opponent can't Yorion blink it later. Yeah. Not great. I think I just lose to the Cauldra. I think I lose to the Cauldra, but let's play this out and see how it goes. I needed, like, a discard spell or an edict, a planeswalker. Had a lot of really good draws there. Did not hit them. Yeah, they are going for the flyer. Okay, I'm fine with this. Fine with there being fewer Jitte counters in play. That's fine. I wasn't super expecting that line. I personally would have valued keeping the Jitte counter, but I get wanting to get rid of the Mutavault. I would have taken 2 there. But this whole amass thing is pretty neat. Oh, they're going. Okay, no, I guess I see it. This hurts, and excuse me, this hurts, but we're not actually dealing all that much. Damn it, we're not actually dealing that much damage to each other. Because, like, we both have dueling Shadow Spears. But I think my opponent just ends up winning here with their Yorion. I think that's going to be the thing that kind of sets this game over the top in their direction. Oh, wow. Council Judgment has voted for this. I will vote for that as well. Then I will eat a bunch of damage. Kind of bottomed out here. Like, I'm just attacking every turn. Like, that's what I gotta do. It's fine. On it not putting the Yorion in yet. Probably fine to just put the Yorion in and attack with it harder. At this point, I am pretty comfortable conceding. I'm going to look... No, actually, like, Toxic Deluge isn't even good enough here, right? Because they just, like, Yorion blank, save their board. Alright, I am good conceding here. GG's. Alright, final round here. I will be keeping my hand. Got a pretty flexible hand. Oh, we're doing this again. Okay. Alright. This is, like, way too much self-damage. The really weird Thoughtseize. The EI is not castable right now, but it's their only cantrip. I think I'm just gonna take that. There's more aggressive lines where I try to, like, take Lightning Bolt to prevent them from killing a Bob. Yeah, this is what I didn't want to see. Oh, that was a shuffle. Okay, so they drew Bobble. They'll Bobble. Probably just play out their Wasteland. Okay, cool. Retrofitter Foundry. So there's one unknown card in their hand. Next turn, I think I would like to play Thoughtseize followed by Dreadhorde Invasion, which means I should just try to eat up their colored mana for their turn by playing a Bob that they'll Lightning Bolt. It's just, like, super awkward because I have this Urza Saga and they're unlikely to tap Wasteland, which means I might not be able to actually Dreadhorde Invasion next turn. So instead, I could force the Force of Will this turn with Dreadhorde Invasion. And then if I draw a land or if my opponent for some reason lets my Urza Saga tick up, I can Thoughtseize Bob. Urza Saga has a very real downside. And we're seeing it right now. I think I'm going to try to eat up their colored mana on their turn. A Bob here. And we'll see where this goes. Operation has failed. Alright. Bob is down. I know 3 of their 4 cards. I've whiffed on the thing that I wanted. Alright. This is happening. My opponent will Wasteland it here. Yeah, and as you can see, this does not currently tap for mana. This eventually gets lifelink. So I think I'm going to try to bait the forces with Bob. And see how that goes. It's possible I am supposed to just, like, Thoughtseize, but I'd really like to do that on a 3-mana turn, if at all possible. Alright, Bob. Let's find some goodies. Oh, yeah. I like that. So I think I'm fine. I should do this in the other order. I should Thoughtseize first. So that Thoughtseize is played around days. Well, I'll be having the Force of Will today. Given board, I'm fine with Sudden Edict, get Delver out of the way, attack for 2. I have very good tools at my resources here. There's a better way to say that, but you know, you figured it out. Shit, my opponent top decked Murktide Regent, backed by Force of Will. A fun Magic card that makes Legacy better and leads to interactive games of Magic. Yeah, it's turn 5, I had utter domination of the game, and now I don't die. Yeah, so my opponent saw the Sudden Edict, and then it's just like, fuck it. Table flip. That was incredibly lucky. I only had 3 more of those in my decks, and 2 looks at them there. Otherwise, my opponent just has me on a 2-turn clock, and a bunch of my other removal spells won't really do it. Alright, let's sideboard. I think I decided before that this was not a Contamination matchup. I think I did Debt to the Kami, Plague Engineer, Toxic Deluge, Leyline. That was 10 cards. I think I got rid of Contaminations and then some amount of the other Hurt Myself cards. Like this and these, I think, was the 10 for 10. I'm not sure on the Dreadhorde Invasion. Like, in that game, that was a card that I was valuing very highly because, like, I wanted to create a giant zombie that was outside of lightning bolt range that could be lifelinky. But, like, my opponent started that game with no pressure, which is why I could, like, try to wiggle towards that line. So I don't know. I've got a little bit of time. I'm gonna think about this a bit. Like, are those Dreadhorde Invasions better than Hymn to Torox? It depends, is the obvious answer. Going all in on that, like, zombie plan is kind of sketch against Brazen Borrower, so maybe the answer is no. And maybe I should largely treat the, like, bottom line here as flavor text rather than something that I can actually expect to happen. Maybe I'll play these on the... if I'm on the play for Game 3. This is yet another no-lander, so easy mulligan. This hand is fantastic. I think the Retrofitter Foundry is the odd man out here. Like, it's a turn 1 play, but it's not really a card that I'm excited about. Given that I have mana stability in the form of Swamp, I think I am just good with this hand as it currently looks. Urza Saga is cool. I will not be playing that out on turn 2, I don't think. There's worlds where I do. I don't feel super great about it. Like, I want mana stability. Like, I don't necessarily want to start going all in on Urza Saga immediately. I think I'm probably comfortable playing it next turn. Let's just try to get some cards out of my opponent's hand in some capacity. It might just be fetch days. In which case, it's still a 1-for-1. Okay, yeah. Here we go. Are we brainstorming? Are we dazing? We're dazing. That's fine. I don't mind this. Again, like, I've still gotten a card for my card. It's not the theoretical amount of value that I wanted, but it's probably good enough. Okay, there's an expressive iteration. We'll see. My opponent probably makes a land drop off it this turn. Cards enter the exile zone. Okay, cool. Now they are going to get a Dragon Rage Channeler, which is just a 1/1. And I can decide whether or not I want to Sudden Edict it away immediately. I wish I had another land. I don't really want to play this. I'm playing it. I don't really want to play it. They just have, like, very good things to do with my mana. This might be a time where I actually hope that my opponent does Wasteland me, oddly enough. I'm not going to give them any surveil value from their creature here. Okay, yeah, I'm like so happy with this scenario because, like, I want to get this stuff going, but, like, I could not justify leaving Urza Saga value on the table. Sure. I like that. That'll be very good at dealing with this, and now it's which one of these do I play? I think it's Bitterblossom, because, like, I haven't given my opponent a good Lightning Bolt target yet. So let's try flooping this into play. It has resolved. Now, opponent could bounce it out of play with a Brazen Borrower at end step. Wow, you have Brainstorm, but then didn't respond to Bitterblossom? I don't necessarily know that that's a mistake, but feels weird to me. Sure. Okay, so there's a Delta. They've got Unholy Heats. Sure, okay. But wait, there's more. I'll play another Dragon Rage Channeler. Let me get a 2-for-1 with Plague Engineer. They've got something they're digging for. I will take my 1 point of damage. Thank you. Bitterblossom starts doing Bitterblossom shit. Urza Saga is cool. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to play Bob or Plague Engineer this turn. Given how good Plague Engineer is versus this card, and the fact that my mana is going to be tied up in Urza Saga for subsequent turns, I think I'm fine playing this, even though like it is dazable. Yep. That's fine. Again, there's like a little bit of tension with Urza Saga as a land here. Yeah, EI away. Opponent has probably seen more than half of their deck at this point, taking like shuffling and such into account. So slightly awkwardly, this thing is never going to be forced to attack into some Bitterblossom tokens, but hopefully that's fine. Like, I'm mostly looking to get a Shadow Spear into play and kind of ride that to victory. My opponent could be preemptively digging for a Meltdown to beat the Urza Saga tokens. Okay, yeah, as expected, no attack. Ooh, that's very good. I think I just kind of accept that this sits in my hand for a little while, though. Let's get in there. This is a spiraling threat. Opponent could have, like, End the Festivities as a sweeper for these rogue tokens at some point. Petty Theft on the Leyline. That's fine. I've still got the better board, but that can change pretty quickly. Like, if my opponent can create a large Murktide, like, that's a problem. If my opponent otherwise sweeps my board, that's not great for me. They have Meltdown, that's not great for me. But we'll kind of see where this goes. And I think I'm willing to commit to the next Urza Saga Construct token as well. Like, it is a little bit awkward if they do just have Meltdown, though. I don't know. Like, maybe I am supposed to just play Liliana of the Veil here. How many Force of Wills are in exile? No Force of Wills are in exile. That's awkward for me, then. Alright. Grab Shadow Spear. Do this thing. There's only one card type in Graveyard. I'm unfortunately probably pretty bad versus a Murktide Regent right now. And like with double Dragon Rage Channeler, my opponent can probably fill a graveyard very quickly. Yeah. Okay, there are Maddening Hexes, which is new to Magic Online. Card is apparently pretty good. Alright, there is a further Brainstorm. We're now up to 4 card types. Definitely scared of Force of Will at this point. Sudden Edict would be a pretty hot draw. There's a lot of worlds where I just get attacked for 6, then 9. And then get finished off by a Lightning Bolt. This is a chump block. Like, have I shifted to the control role where, like, I'm not going to beat down faster than my opponent beats down, so I need to either chump block or not block, and then try to trade bodies with these things. Graveyard's already pretty full, so, like, Leyline doesn't super help here. I'm gonna take the hit and maybe trade. I think a lot is gonna depend on whether or not my Liliana of the Veil actually resolves. Oh god, is there Murktide on top of this? Yeah, there is. Meltdown plus Murktide is the worst possible timeline here. I don't really think I beat this in just about any world, especially if it's backed by a counterspell. So I always have to just attempt this. Yeah, that is the perfects. Also getting them back to 4 types for the Dragon Rage Channelers. Brazen Borrower still hanging out in exile as well. This is most unfortunate. So these have to attack. Murktide is coming in as well. So one always goes here. I think I'm going to try to raid away bodies. Take 3, go to 6. My opponent puts these in. I'll need to like draw a removal spell or something. but this means that I'm not just in the literal abyss to yet another creature for another turn. And I already feel like I'm dead if my opponent has a lightning bolt. Yeah, that's fine. I am okay conceding here. Yeah, like, if my opponent has a lightning bolt, like, I am going to die to that in the next turn cycle, I think 100% of the time anyway, and I'm on quite a clock from my own Bitterblossom. Alright, do I want to play with these when I'm on the play? They're, like, okay. But, like, there's also Hymn to Turok. Like, Hymn to Turok is a great thing to Dark Ritual in. Let's experiment, though. Like, I have played Hymn to Turok versus Delver thousands of times, probably. I've never, or well, maybe once I've played that card versus Delver. Let's kind of see how it feels. Be a little lighter on good Dark Ritual base plays. Yeah, we're Mana Light again. Auto Mulligan. Mana Light again, Auto Mulligan. Wow. Okay. The disaster. I'm probably keeping. 2 of these go back for sure. But I just don't think I beat Delver on 4 cards, and I think I've just got to hope for a black source to turn this into a capable hand. But this is basically an unmitigated disaster. Not good. Guess we're going all in on Urza Saga here. And I think I am just going to put a Shadow Spear in play rather than attack for 2 with Mutavault this turn. But I'm so very bad versus a Wasteland. Like, that was already true, but it's even more so true now. Alright, am I dead? Oh, not yet. Whatever they have there, they wanted. Which potentially means Counterspell or a land drop if they miss one here. Probably a land drop then. So, you know, it always could be something like a Meltdown. Okay, hot damn. We did find a black source. So now we're hoping for no whammy on opponent finding a Meltdown. Maybe a little mistake on my end. I potentially should have played out the Mutavault instead, in case the card that I draw, is exactly Dark Ritual. I just kind of went on autopilot there. Oh, they're going to let me tutor. Okay. Here's to hoping that my card is exactly Dark Ritual for the exact opposite reason now, though. It was not. This is still fine, though. This gets me a Retrofitter Foundry. Now I make my land drop. I think I play Pithing Needle now. Shutting off Wasteland for the rest of the game. Also turning this into a 4/4. And now I think I try to save that Bob for a little bit later when I can play it around days. Like, I haven't given my opponent good counterspell targets for the most part yet. I think I'm just gonna crash in here. Like, maybe I'm wrong and I'm supposed to, like, play this out to try to draw towards answers towards these, so my opponent's selection isn't just absolutely insane. But it's tough. Like, opponent probably has 2 copies of Meltdown that I care about in their deck. And for the most part, the rest of their cards I don't care about. I have them on a very fast clock, though. And it's also possible that I will never cast this Bob. Like, that it is just better to use my mana on, like, Retrofitter Foundry or activating Mutavault or something. We'll see. It's a little hard to say. This deck gets to look at so many cards. They topped something, which is not good for me. My decisions are kind of tough. Just damage them. Just damage them. Put them on a 1-turn clock. Yeah, I think it's Meltdown now or you're dead. I guess I've also got a line where I end up animating Mutavault and turning it into a 4/4. I didn't consider that. I don't think it changes the clock or anything, but I did not consider that in my last turn cycle. Which is a mistake on my end. Yeah, they found it. Alright, so I've kind of got to hope that my Dark Confidant can win the game from here. It's not guaranteed to resolve, or maybe not even likely to resolve. Like, opponent has 6 cards in hand. I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to play it. It may be better to just Mutavault attack for 2 than to play Bob. Like, I'll play Bob when I'm on 4 mana. I think I'm into that. Like, this is just guaranteed safe damage. I'm gonna take that where I can. I just hate how much better this deck is than everything else in the format. Like, I have seen 11 cards. My opponent has 33 cards remaining in library, and they've shuffled a bunch back in that they've already seen. That's bad for me. That turns, like, Daze back on as a real spell that it otherwise wouldn't have been. Alright, I'm at 23. That is a good card for a little bit later. I am fine feeding Bob to a counterspell in hopes of actually resolving this card. But Bob just resolves a lot of times, and then my opponent lightning bolts it. Alright, I have fed it to the Daze in hopes of getting this card to resolve later. Alright, so now we've kind of reached an uninteresting point of the game where my opponent attacks me for 2 while trying to find as many counterspells as possible. Oh, or that's even worse. Because now they just get to, like, play a Murktide Regent in 2 turns, and then I'll die in 1 more turn after that, probably. Now? Attempt to kill these. It's just so bad if my opponent untaps with them. I think so. I really wanted to be able to save this until later, but I don't think I'm in that situation. I also don't think this card resolves. Opponent has 5 cards in hand. Yep. But, like, given that I have no manipulation to, like, set up discard into that, and, like, I've also boarded out some number of hymns, I don't think I can wait a turn. Now there's worlds where my opponent can make Murktide this turn. Okay, not anymore. But I probably get attacked for 6. Like a fetch land or artifact does it, yep. Opponent's at 2. Like, there's worlds where I can, can do something, but I'm just dead in, what, 2 more turns? Attack for 9, attack for 12. Just, like, on board. This card does nothing if my opponent has a counter spell or removal spell. Otherwise, it does kill them. I hate playing against this deck so much. Yeah, and they've topped whatever they have here. So that probably means, like, yet another counter spell. Oh, sure. Yeah, I probably have no outs with a Maddening Hex in play. Like, I was on very few outs before, but, like, with this in play, like, I kill one of these, I take 6, and that's not counting the Maddening Hex damage. We are dead. GG's. So we'll kind of end up with a disappointing 2-3 in the league. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Slight thumbs down. There's a few things contributing to that. Number 1, the whole contamination plan was boarded out in most of my rounds. It was very good when it was good, and it did win the game when it resolves. Like, I've got my screenshots to prove it. But, like, whenever you are trying to play a, like, controlling role, and you have to play to the things that are already on the board, contamination does nothing to fix the things that are already on the board. And a lot of the things that we played against today, like Dark Depths, like Urza's Saga, or Aether Vial, ignore the contamination lock in some capacity, meaning that assembling your A plus B combo doesn't actually win you the game. And if your 3 mana enchantment that kind of does nothing on its own isn't winning you the game, then, like, is it actually supposed to be in the deck? Beyond kind of contamination getting boarded out in most of the rounds, I think that Mutavault lost me probably 3 games. And I say that based on the fact that I had to mulligan these colorless only hands. Did Mutavault do some good things? Yes, absolutely. It did attack for damage. But, like, when you look at the colored pips here, like, you have these critical turn 2 plays, as well as a major turn 3 play, and 8 turn 1 plays that require you to have this black mana. And anytime you open up on something like Urza Saga Mutavault, like, your hand is unkeepable. I think there's just a little bit too much greed there. I also threw back a whole lot of hands that did not have enough starting mana to be good, which maybe means, like, you need to drop some Fatal Push or Contamination or something in order to get a couple more mana sources in there. I'd have to compare the amount of mana I was playing to other mono black with lists that I've played recently, but I definitely felt like I was just kind of coming up a little bit dry on mana a lot of times. Sideboard felt reasonable. Like, the ley lines were fantastic. I think I boarded in everything this league. Maybe I didn't board in Null Rod. But overall, this deck is pretty reasonable. But I still kind of feel like Contamination is a medium minus power level card. Like, if you compare it to Blood Moon or Back to Basics, which just have, like, this immediate impact on the game that is often game-ending, Contamination doesn't have that. It requires another card. And it's not beating Urza's Saga, which is absolutely everywhere. Like, and some of these, like, niche sideboard decisions. But ultimately, like most of the black decks that I play on the channel, like, it's got game. The general shell is good. And I would be interested in messing around with this card a little bit more, perhaps. This did some interesting things. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please click the like button on the way out. It helps a lot. I hope you have a great rest of the day. And if you want to mess around with this deck list, it's linked via Moxfield in the video description. And my donation information and all the various ways that you can support me are also linked there. All right, have a great rest of the day. See ya!